Hey everybody, I'm Grandmaster Ben Finegold here with our weekly lecture series. Today we're going to look at opening pawn sacrifice for white called the Geller Gambit. Happens in the Slav defense. I have the Wikipedia article up of the Slav defense, and they have a paragraph about the Geller Gambit, so you can see what it is. First, I want to thank our sponsor, Audrey, and our sponsor has a message. Happy birthday, Tim. You're the best husband and father, and the only time you're not a joy to be around is when you're playing bad chess. Hope you enjoy the lecture. I've been married 3 times. Karen's my 3rd wife. We've been married over 8 years. And usually, wives in the past and currently don't say nice things about me and tell me what a pleasure I am. Although not being a joy around when I'm playing bad chess, I've heard that before. Anyway, we're going to analyze one position that happens after move 5, and we're going to go down in the Wikipedia article. They talk about all the Slavs, and I'll highlight this in blue. That's the little blurb they have on the Geller Gambit. And it says, evaluation of the line changes as improvements are found, but as of 2005, man, this was written 20 years ago, it is generally thought to favor black. Okay, and I don't necessarily agree with that. My opinion of the Geller Gambit is that it's very sharp, and if you don't like draws, who likes draws? Okay, maybe Garry does. Then it's a good opening for both sides. Okay, so I selected 5 games to look at, and the sponsor, the husband said, I'm mostly curious about white's perspective, but would also be interested in black if there's time. And so the first few games, white's going to win. We're going to talk about what white's doing. Then the last game, black wins, because you don't always win in chess. And in my opinion, which is not shared by any of my students, the result of the game isn't determined in the opening. Typically, the result of the game is determined between moves like 17 and 30. In the middle game, when somebody is outplaying somebody or somebody blunders. And if you don't like draws and you want to out-prepare your opponent, Geller Gambit is a good opening. Now, before I talk about the first game, I have to tell you a personal story because it's my lecture. So what's the sponsor going to do? Take their money back? So the last tournament I played in about a month ago in Charlotte, one of the rare times in my life, I had white in the Geller Gambit. Not related to this lecture, but life comes at you fast. And my game, I had a better position, but I thought I had a worse position because chess is too complicated for me. And I offered a draw, and I thought I was worse. I was happy when my opponent accepted. Then the engine said I was better. So, don't understand why. Geller Gambit's very complicated. Anyway, when the game ended, I told my friend Peter Giannatos, who's a FIDE master, and he's the founder of the Charlotte Chess Center, which is a huge chess center, lots of grandmasters, lots of members, lots of employees, more than one location. And he's in probably 90% of the schools in Metro Charlotte teaching chess. And Peter said to me, did you play the old line or did you play the line they play now? And I'm like, what? So obviously I played the old line because I'm old. And he told me that Ginger GM did some analysis, I assume on Chessable. He didn't say it was Chessable. What else would it be? With this other line that white can play. And, well, since Magnus Carlsen played it, I figure it's got to be okay. Probably, if I play the Geller Gambit again, I'll play the modern way, because if Magnus can play it and Magnus wins, it's probably a good way to play. Okay, so first we'll get to the starting position. And in my chess career, if you can call it a career, when it's a Geller Gambit, I'm usually black because I play the Slav defense. Although I haven't been playing it lately, but I played it for 35 years. Okay, this is the Slav, and probably at least half the games in the Slav, black plays the semi-Slav, where black plays e6 at some point, either on move 3 or move 4. However, there's the regular old Slav, okay? And in the regular Slav, in this position, black takes on c4. Some people play e6. Some people play a6. Very low-rated players play bishop f5, which is a mistake. But the main line of the Slav, which I've played for black most of my career, is to take on c4. And black wants to play b5 and be a pawn ahead. So the main move, the most common move, is a4. And that prevents b5. That's the main line of the Slav. I've had white and black in that position, just not at the same time. Okay, so the Geller Gambit is not a4. The Geller Gambit, which is not the most common, is e4. And I can't prove it. I can't give you any evidence, but I'm pretty sure the Geller Gambit was named after F.M. Geller. Now, it could have been named after Yuri Geller, but you've never heard of Yuri Geller, and he wasn't a chess player, so probably it wasn't named after him. And, of course, if it was white's to move, white would take on c4. White has a big center. White has a big advantage. Well, the reason white usually plays a4 instead of e4, the Geller Gambit, is black plays b5. Black must play b5. There's no other move. Okay, and this is the starting position of the Geller Gambit. And for 75 years, everybody played e5. The last 5 to 10 years, some people play bishop e2, which I wasn't aware of until last month when Peter asked me, did you play the modern way with bishop e2 or the old way with e5? So the first 2 games we're going to look at with the modern way of playing. The next 2 games we're going to look at old school. And the 5th game is going to be one where black doesn't lose. Because, black doesn't always lose in chess. It's unfortunate. Okay, so the modern way of playing is bishop to e2. And in this position, it's arguable what the best move is, but in my opinion, it's e6. And I think e6 isn't the most common move, but I think it's the best move. Usually, black can't help themselves and plays b4. Now, in this position, it makes sense to me that white should play e5, and that's what we're going to look at this lecture. It's also common to play knight a4, which I don't like because it gives away the center pawn. Obviously, white gets the c pawn, but I don't want to give away my e4 pawn. And b4 attacks the knight. The knight's defending the pawn. Seems good. The negative of b4 is it leaves the c4 pawn hanging. So there's good and there's bad. Okay, so we're going to look at e5 this lecture. the second game we're going to look at ends very quickly. This game does not. This is Magnus Carlsen white and Yangyi is black. I probably should have said that 4 minutes ago. This was played in Norway chess 2019. Probably this wasn't very common then, 6 years ago. Okay, so they trade knights. Takes. Here, black has 2 moves. Black can take on f6. I guess either way, but e takes f6 is better pawn structure. Or black can take on b2, which we're going to look at next game. Okay, so Yangyi took on f6. White takes on c3. White has a lead in development. White has a better pawn structure. Black is a pawn ahead, but I don't think black is going to hold on to the c4 pawn very long. So it's going to be equal material soon, and white must have a slight advantage because white's going to have a queenside majority, and black's kingside majority is a doubled f pawn. That's not good for creating a passed pawn. So white's going to have a better endgame, and that's just Magnus Carlsen's game. And I don't want to talk about the game too much because this is a lecture on the Geller Gambit. But I could imagine if I play bishop e2 in the Geller Gambit, I could easily get this position. So it would behoove me to memorize the first 20 moves of this game so I can play like Magnus for a while. Okay, so now both sides just play normal chess. It's not like the old-fashioned crazy variations we're going to see in games 3 and 4. Okay, I mean, like people just castle and develop their pieces. Magnus played knight d2. He wants to take with the knight on c4. People just develop their pieces, put their rooks on open files. It's not very unusual, but it's clear to me the opening has been a success for white because the pawns are even and black has this doubled extra pawn on the king side and white has a healthy extra pawn on the queen side. Okay, and if you're wondering, what's Magnus Carlsen's style, then this is a game you can show people. Again, it's Carlsen Yangyi from Norway Chess 2019. This exemplifies the way Magnus plays chess. Bishop a6 attacks the knight. Knight e3. Black plays knight to b6. And in this position, Magnus chose bishop a3. If you play bishop takes c6, that's actually a terrible blunder. It looks good because both rooks are attacked. And I want to tell you something interesting from a psychological point of view. If you're playing a very low-rated player and they allow you to play bishop takes c6, you might think to yourself, my opponent's terrible. He didn't see bishop takes c6. I'm forking his rooks. What a Pantzar. And then you play bishop takes c6 quickly, which is not good. You should assume when it looks like your opponent blundered that they see something you don't. And obviously at this level, Yangyi is one of the top 4 players in China, and he's over 2,700 FIDE. So he's not hanging a pawn and hanging both of his rooks. Magnus knows that. And in this position, black can play queen d6, threatening the bishop and threatening queen takes h2 checkmate. I'll bet you weren't thinking white would get checkmated so quickly. And so white has to stop checkmate and black wins a piece on c6. That's why Yangyi played bishop a6, previous move, to stop king f1. Otherwise, queen takes h2 is not mate. Okay, Magnus didn't fall for that. Magnus played bishop a3, which prevents queen d6. So now white's threatening bishop takes c6. Knight c4, attacking the bishop on a3. Queen to d3. Magnus wants to get the two bishops. Taking here looks bad, because after queen takes, your knight's hanging, your c6 pawn's hanging. So he sacrificed the exchange, because always sacrifice the exchange. And in this position, Magnus played rook takes. I mean, if I was playing a blitz game, I would definitely play pawn takes. And I think it's just an exchange sacrifice because Black's knight is so strong on c4. But Magnus gave the exchange back to get to this much better endgame with two bishops and a terrible isolated pawn on c6, and the knight can't sit on c4. Knight c2, takes the bishop, takes, and obviously the endgame is much better for white because white has a queenside pawn majority, the c6 pawn is very weak, and Black's kingside pawn majority is useless. Black's rook is on a8, one of the worst squares it can be on, and white's ready to push the pawns in the center and get a passed pawn. Queen d6. Magnus trades queens. If you take on c6, rook c8, you have to play d5 to protect your bishop, then your pawns are blockaded. There's a dark square blockade. It'd be very difficult for white to win. So Magnus played c4. He wants to play c5 and then take the pawn on c6. Rook c8, c5. Magnus walks his king up to c4. Move your king up in the endgame. And obviously, white has a big advantage with all of Black's weak pawns. Black's trying to get counterplay, but with this pawn structure like this, there's no way for Black to create a passed pawn. White obviously can create a passed pawn whenever he wants by playing d5. And eventually, Black runs out of pawns. Black's pawns are all hanging. And white pushes the c pawn. And in this position, Yangyi was hoping for queen. Then rook c1 check would win the queen. Magnus played king b3. And in this position, white's going to queen. And if Black plays rook c1, which is the only move, then I just take on a3. White is up two pawns. White has two connected passed pawns in the center. Black has no passed pawns. Black will never have any passed pawns. White wins easily. Yangyi resigned. So that was a Geller Gambit that doesn't look like the old-fashioned Geller Gambit, which is basically nuts. That was a very sane, sort of boring, solid game where white was slightly better and Magnus outplayed his opponent. How many times have we heard that? And he won sort of a clean game. Some would say smooth. Okay, now the next game is the most fun game of the lecture, but not the best played. And white is Daniil Dubov, everybody's favorite. Black is an unknown player, rated 2400, Milton Pantzar. And this was played in a blitz tournament in 2020. And if you play the Geller Gambit with either color in a blitz game, there's going to be mistakes. And usually when one guy's 2700 and one guy's 2400, 2400 makes more mistakes. This game ended like 2 moves out of theory. Truth hurts. Okay, they transposed to Geller Gambit. And Dubov played bishop e2 like Magnus. b4, e5, takes. This already happened in the previous game. If you remember, Yangyi played e takes f6. And white had a slight advantage out of the opening and eventually improved and won. Black played the more enterprising c takes b2, confusing the spectators. And then white played f takes g7. And in some semi-Slavs and some Slavs, we see both sides queen. It happens. Okay, so taking a rook and making a queen sounds like a good deal. You win a queen and a rook with one move. Wow. And white did the same thing. And this position is considered better for white because material is about equal. I guess technically black's a pawn ahead, but a lot of queens on the board. But definitely white's king is the safer of the two. White can castle at his leisure, and black's not going to castle this game. So black's going to have to, keep the king on e8 and hope not to get checkmated by two queens. Now in this position, white has a threat, and black didn't see it. So black should do some kind of checking, I guess queen a5 check, and then maybe take this pawn so the queens are defending each other. Although maybe the best move is knight d7. Knight d7 prevents white's trick. And black didn't see white's trick because it was a blitz game. And probably black had never seen this position. And I'm guessing Dubov already knew this position because he's the one playing the Geller Gambit, and he played the bishop e2 line. They're following Magnus's game, and they both queen instead. Black played bishop f5, which develops the bishop and defends the h-pawn, so there's no queen h7. And now white wins immediately. Bishop f5 is double question mark. That happens in blitz games. If you're really strong at tactics, this should be pretty easy. If tactics isn't your game, then this isn't so easy. Somebody strong at tactics is Daniil Dubov. So for even in blitz chess, this is very easy for him. He played queen takes f8 check, sacrificing his queen, and then after king takes, plays bishop h6 check, and is going to win the queen in the corner. White wins a piece. Black has no compensation. So black played king g8, white took the queen, and black resigned. Because black's down a piece for nothing, and his opponent's 300 points higher rated. So in the Geller Gambit, especially in blitz chess and rapid and bullet, there's going to be a lot of blunders by somebody because it's too complicated for humans. And if you're playing an engine, my first question is, why are you playing an engine? If you're playing an engine, you don't want to have either side of the Geller Gambit. The Geller Gambit is fun to analyze, but playing it is very treacherous, especially if you play the complicated old main lines. And I didn't understand the position when I did last month. So we're going to look at a couple of crazy games, and that's basically the point of the Geller Gambit, is to get crazy positions. You don't care about material, and you're playing for an initiative. Okay, the next game, Hikaru Nakamura's white. He's pretty good. He's playing Cameron Wheeler, who's a junior player. This was played in a rapid pro chess league in 2018. And this is before bishop e2 became popular. So Nakamura played the old main line, which when Nakamura plays blitz and rapid, I've seen him do this before, including against Magnus. Okay, so e5 is the old main line. That's what I play. knight d5, a4, trying to soften up the queen side. Black usually plays e6, but not always, but usually. And this is the main line for 75 years. Takes. Black doesn't want to take back because white would take with the knight. So black trades knights, then takes back. Black is a pawn ahead, although black doesn't have any development. Knight g5 with the immediate threat of queen f3, threatening mate and threatening the rook. So black usually plays bishop b7. Now queen f3 is less good because it hangs the queen. So bishop e2. The main move is queen h5. That's what I played in my tournament last month. Nakamura also played queen h5 against Magnus Carlsen. And queen h5 was the main move for a long time. Hikaru played bishop e2, so he must have some preparation in case black takes this. I would assume white plays bishop f3, and white has an attack. The rook is trapped. If you take this, you just lose because that's mate and that's a rook. So you'd have to take the rook. Then I would take back. Now, again, white's threatening queen f3. I think white's just winning. I mean, you have to stop me from taking the rook for free. But if you do, let's say knight d7, queen defends, then I play queen f3. I'm still going to take the rook for free, and I'm still mating you. So it seems like Hikaru knew bishop e2 and knew that black can't take on g2. And bishop e2 isn't very common, so now his opponent's left to his own devices. Okay, bishop e7, attacking the knight. Bishop f3, attacking everything, the bishop, then the rook. Knight c6. h4, putting it in h. And black always has to decide whether to castle kingside and face a kingside attack, castle queenside, which is risky because your pawns are here, or leave the king on e8. Cameron Wheeler played b4, and when I have white in the Geller Gambit, I'm always worried about this move because it basically demolishes white's center. So that move I'm always scared of it. I don't know what to do against it. Okay, Hikaru's not scared. He played bishop e4. He wants to play queen f3 and do all that mean stuff I keep talking about. Queen d7, defending the knight before it's attacked. Queen h5, threatening queen takes f7. Bishop takes knight. Now the knight isn't attacking f7 anymore, so there's no threat. Queen takes, threatening queen takes g7. B takes c3. Black gives up the king side, and black is going to try to destroy white's center. The game is a mess. And this is just Hikaru's type of position. Hikaru just castles because his king's not good on e1, so he gets his king out of there. Queen takes d4. Black is up a lot of pawns. Bishop takes c6 check. Bishop e3. And black is up a lot of pawns, but white can play queen takes g7. White's threatening the queen. The king is not very good. Black played queen e4, putting pressure on g2 so the queen can't run around. Bishop c5, threatening checkmate in one move and stopping black from castling. It's not easy to find a move here for black. Queen e7 mate is hard to stop. He never played f6. Queen takes g7, threatening the rook and threatening queen e7 mate. Black castled queenside. White played rook takes a7, threatening queen c7 mate, bishop b7. And in this position, black is still ahead of pawn, and black still has this battery against g2. So white's still got to be careful. Bishop d6, Nakamura threatens checkmate again, and you can't play rook d7 because your rook's hanging in the corner with check. How do you stop queen c7 mate? Played queen c6. Nakamura played like Morphy. He got all of his pieces into the attack. Rook b1. And I think in this position, I think black can resign. I think black is just completely lost. And white is threatening mate in 2, and black didn't see it. Now, I see the mate in 2, because I've seen the game. I don't know how to stop it. Okay, rook takes bishop would stop it, but that hangs both of my rooks. So I guess rook takes bishop is the best move, because getting checkmated is not good. Okay, but black didn't see the checkmate. Otherwise, black probably would have sacrificed on d6. Black played c2, threatening the rook. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can pause the video. White to play and mate in 2 moves. Now, obviously, if black had seen this, black wouldn't have played c2. And if white doesn't have checkmate here, then Hikaru's move doesn't make any sense because c2 is really strong. But Hikaru knew that c2 would get mated, so he wasn't worried about that. Okay, anyway, I'm sure it's obvious to everybody that solved it that rook a8 check is the answer. It's always easier to solve problems when every move is checked. Black has one legal move. Bishop takes rook, then rook b8 checkmate. So that was a crazy game where both kings were under attack, where black was queening his c-pawn with check, and black's king was under attack and got mated. Very Hikaru-like game. Hikaru's good when there's a lot of tactics. This was a rapid game, so I'm sure that the last 5 or 6 moves, black had very little time on his clock and wasn't able to calculate everything because the position was so messy. Okay, one of my favorite players from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and I guess the beginning of the 2000s, is Garry Kasparov. This game was played when Kasparov was only 17 years old, and this was played at the Olympiad. I think Kasparov was like second alternate for the Soviet team. And this was played in 1980 against the Icelandic Grandmaster Margeir Petursson. Now, this isn't related to the lecture, but it's still funny, and I have to be funny a little bit, or you guys don't like my lecture so much. I played Margeir Petursson in 1988. Then I played him again in 1994. Both times I played him were in Canada. And probably those were the only 2 tournaments I've played in Canada, like since I've become a FIDE master or IM. I don't think I've played any other Canadian tournaments. Even now, we're talking like 30 years ago and 35 years ago. I never play in Canada, but they had the World Chess Festival and they had the Canadian Open, and I played in both of them. And Petursson, who's from Iceland, also played in both of them, and I got paired with him. And after the second game, he informed me, he said, where do you live in Canada? And I said, I'm not Canadian. And he said, you're not Canadian? Why do I always play you in Canada? And I said, you're not Canadian, I always play you in Canada. So he thought I was Canadian because he only sees me in Canada. Margeir Petursson is one of the few grandmasters who has a regular job. He's a very well-known patent attorney, very successful. He's maybe the most famous patent attorney in Iceland, which isn't saying much, but to be a patent attorney and a grandmaster, that's Not a lot of people like that. By the way, another famous patent lawyer plays chess is Larry Christensen's wife, Natasha Christensen. She's about 1900 USCF. She's also a patent lawyer. Okay, so if you want to be good at chess, okay, so Kasparov is white. Kasparov's only 17, but he's still really good. Much higher rated than Petursson. They played the Geller Gambit. Now, of course, if Dubov and Carlsen, Nakamura, and Kasparov are playing an opening with white, we have to disagree a little bit with Wikipedia, which says it's considered good for black. I don't think those players would play an opening with white if they thought black was better. Okay, Kasparov played the old main line because this game was played in 1980. This is the only line. This is the same as the game we just looked at that Nakamura won. Everything's the same. And in this position, Nakamura played bishop e2. I was saying queen h5 is the main move. Kasparov played queen h5, threatening checkmate. Queen d7. Some people play queen d7. Some people play g6. Played queen d7. Bishop e2. Once again, if bishop takes, I assume white wants to play bishop f3, like Nakamura would have done. h6. h6 doesn't really attack the knight because the pawn is pinned to the rook. So it's more likely black's threatening something like g6. Bishop f3. Knight c6. Knight c6 is what Cameron Wheeler played against Naka when Naka played bishop f3. So this is like the Naka game, except Kasparov's queen's on h5, Naka's queen was on d1, but later in the game, Nakamura played bishop e4 and queen h5. Okay, so black's a pawn up, white's trying to get an initiative. Castles. Knight d8, defending all of the weaknesses and trying to trade pieces. I don't like knight d8. I think it's too passive. Knight e4. Black plays a5. Black has extra pawns on the queen side. Black wants to get some passed pawns. Bishop g5. Again, if you take the bishop, the rook is hanging on h8. Kasparov playing super aggressively. Bishop d5. The bishop often goes to d5, which we're going to see in the next game successfully in this opening because it's a nice center square, blocks up the diagonal. Rook e1, knight c6. Petursson decides his knight's not good on d8. Now Kasparov plays a little tactical here. Plays a bishop h4. Not yet. I'm a move ahead of myself. Rook a7. Queen g4. Black's king isn't very good. Rook h7. Black wants to play bishop e7, but his g-pawn was not defended. And knight d6 check. So knight d6 blocks the queen from the bishop. So white wants to play bishop takes d5 and eventually open the e-file. And by eventually, I mean right now. Bishop takes d6, bishop takes d5, bishop e7. If you take on d5, I take on d6 with check, and that opens up the line to black's king, and then white could play bishop e7 check next move. Then white can attack the d-pawn with queen f3. The rook on h7 is completely misplaced. White has a passed pawn on d6. d5 pawn is very difficult to defend. And by very difficult, I don't see how you defend it. So Petursson played bishop e7. Kasparov attacked the rook on h7. g6. Bishop f6. Getting into the hole there that was created by g6. King f8. And basically, if I had to sum this up in two sentences, I would say black is a pawn up. That's the good. And black's rook is on h7. If black's rook was on d8, well, actually, if black's rook was on d8, then h6 would be really weak. Man. I guess I don't like black's position no matter what I say. Okay, queen f3. White wants to play d5. And white plays d5, breaking through in the center. White has a big initiative. Black's rooks are on a7 and h7, which when I was a kid, my dad told me to double on the 7th with the rooks, but I'm not sure that's what he meant. Queen f5, let's trade queens. Kasparov says no. Why don't I take your rook instead? Rook d7, rook d1. He trades. Black can't take on f6 because queen e8 check wins the rook. So he plays knight e6. Bishop e4, threatening the queen and threatening the rook. Black sacrifices his queen because he doesn't really have a good move. He's going to lose his rook or his queen. So he gets a rook, a knight, and several pawns for the queen. And black has, good pawn structure here. And if black's rook was on d8, I could see black being better. It's possible. Black's rook's on h7, and black's rook is trapped. So he's basically lost. White plays queen e5, threatening f5 pawn, b5 pawn, and most importantly, queen b8 check. Now, if you're a mathematician, you're going to like the way the game ends. If you're a chess player, maybe not. Okay, no, you'll still like it. So white's threatening queen b8, which leads to checkmate. Black played king g8 so that after queen b8, black can play knight f8. And Kasparov did a nice geometrical tactic here, played queen g3 check. And now, if the king goes to h8 or f8, then queen b8 is going to lead to mate. And if black plays knight g5, queen b8 is checkmate. And if black plays knight g7, queen b8 leads to checkmate. The only way not to get checkmated is to play rook g7. So rather than playing rook g7 and being down a queen for a knight, Petursson resigned. And again, players like Nakamura and Kasparov playing the old school way of playing this opening, it really suits their style. You get these crazy positions and they outplay their opponent tactically, strategically. Okay, now I don't want you to think that white has all the fun. This is a game where white's a player I haven't heard of, Evarth Kahn, 2300 something, against one of the great players of the past, and he's still alive, Lajos Portisch. Lajos Portisch was Hungarian champion 1 billion times. And he played board 1 for Hungary 2 billion times in the Olympiads. Portisch is still alive. He was born exactly 1 day before my dad. My dad was born April 5th, 1937. Portisch was born April 4th, 1937. Okay, and I played Portisch once and I lost. That's the good news. The bad news is it wasn't Lajos Portisch. It was his brother, Ferenc. Ferenc Portisch is his brother and he's an IM. Man, he crushed me. I'd never played Lajos Portisch. Okay, they played the old main line of the Geller Gambit because this game was played in 2002. Boy, Portisch was pretty old in 2002. Portisch was no spring chicken in 2002. He was born in 1937. Okay, so Portisch knew this opening before his opponent was born. And we've already seen this, but now we're looking at it from black's point of view. Okay, Portisch played g6. The previous game, we saw queen to d7 from Petursson. this is actually my game that I played last month that I had white in Charlotte. Bishop to d5. Typically, black wants to play knight c6, but black doesn't want to block the bishop. So bishop d5, knight c6 is a good way to play for black. Portisch gets his pawns going. h6, stopping bishop g5. White wants to trade the dark squared bishops. Then white can get a knight in to the dark squares. So Portisch plays h6 and says, no, you're not going to play bishop g5. Knight d6. Bishop takes d5. We saw Kasparov do this. Takes, takes, queen takes. Now black is up 2 pawns. b4. Now, if you take with the pawn, I play bishop takes b4, attacking your queen and attacking your rook. So Portisch took with the knight. Black is still 2 pawns ahead. White has a slight initiative. As soon as black castles, he should be winning. He puts his king on g7. White doesn't have enough compensation for 2 pawns. And the game ends very quickly. If Portisch takes on h4, white takes on d5. Portisch said, hey, let's trade queens, and we can go into a double rook ending where I have 2 extra passed pawns. And his opponent says, no, we're not going to do that. Portisch plays c3. His opponent attacks his queen. Portisch says, yeah, you can have my queen. c2, threatening c1 queen. If you take the queen, I queen, take the rook, and black is ahead of rook. So white played rook c7, stopping the pawn. Portisch once again ignored his queen was hanging and played rook c8. Okay, so in this position, white resigned. Black is threatening rook takes rook. And black is also threatening the queen. The only move that I see is rook takes queen. Then I play rook takes rook. Now I'm going to play c1 equals queen check next move, and you're not going to stop it. And then black's up a rook. There's no stopping c1 queen. So that was a game where black outplayed white, and black used the extra queenside pawns to win the game, which the other players tried to do, but they were too busy getting mated by Nakamura and Kasparov and Dubov. So the truth hurts. So I think this is a good opening, a good surprise opening. It's not played that often. It's not a bad opening. It gets very sharp positions. If you don't like draws and you like decisive games, this is the opening for you. And it's also a good opening if you want to do some home preparation. You can look at positions between moves 6 and 13 and turn your engine on, and maybe your computer will find a move that wasn't played in these old main lines, and you can get one up on your opponent. I hope you enjoyed that lecture. I want to thank our sponsor again, Audrey, who sponsored the lecture. Happy birthday, Tim, her husband. If you'd like to sponsor a lecture, then you can look in the details of the video and look up Karen's email address and contact her. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment. That helps the channel out tremendously. I'll see you guys next time with more weekly lectures. Thanks again, Audrey. Bye.